After sifting through my catalog of stained glass patterns a couple of times, I finally ended up on something that felt right to make. It's not a very complicated pattern. There aren't a ton of pieces, there's nothing super small or intricate, just something smooth and easy that I could knock out in a day. I figured it'd be a fun, relaxing project compared to some of the more meticulous and detail-heavy pieces I've been working on lately. So I've already got my pattern traced out onto all the glass like I normally do, and you can see me cutting everything out here. Out of all the glass I picked for this piece, my favorite by far is the clear glass that represents the water on the cattails. Now the reason why I love this glass so much is how easy it is to work with. I barely even need any pliers to break the glass. Most times I can just use my hands. It's super satisfying. You can bend it with your fingers and it almost wants to break exactly where you scored it. I rarely have any issues with this clear glass, which isn't always the case with other types. The rest of the glass I chose worked well too, but the clear glass just really stands out. I wasn't completely thrilled about the glass that I picked for the mountains. I didn't have a lot set aside that really jumped out on me, so I ended up going with this more rocky gray look. I would have preferred a warmer, like woody brown, but this will get the job done. Just in a few seconds after I get everything ground down, you'll see me spend some time sizing everything up and making sure all the pieces fit together properly. With how simple this pattern is, this process went fairly smoothly. The only real issue I ran into was with one of the cattail leaves. When I traced the pattern onto the glass, it wasn't quite perfect and it left a small gap. Luckily that's something I can just fill in with solder later once everything's foiled. I was actually surprised how well the cattails themselves turned out. Since they're so symmetrical, I expected them to give me more trouble. Straight lines and near perfect curves tend to show imperfections pretty easily, but this one came out better than I expected. You'll see me go back and forth a couple of times to knock off some extra material on a few of these pieces. Fortunately, I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time doing this. As I said earlier, this was a fairly cooperative pattern and all the glass was easy to work with. You might notice I'm using a different foiling method here. I don't often reach for this table foiler because it tends to struggle with smaller, more intricate pieces, but for these larger, chunkier sections, it actually works very well. I end up going back and forth between the foiling tool and hand foiling. Part of that is just because I end up running low on this spool of foil, and I didn't want to run into any snags. I'll switch back to the table foiler after throwing on a new spool. It's just a generic Hobby Lobby foil, and while it works, it's not really my preference. It feels thinner and it's not quite as sturdy as some of the more name brand stained glass foils. I'll find it tearing on some of the tighter curves of the glass, and it doesn't seem to hold up as long as some of the higher quality brands. Nonetheless, it's still a good starter material and widely accessible for anybody who wants to give stained glass a try. Once everything's foiled, I'll go ahead and move on to soldering. I apply a thin layer of flux and tack all the pieces together, just to make sure nothing shifts when I start laying down the main solder beads. That's also where I go back and fill in that gap on the cattail leaf I mentioned earlier. After soldering, you'll never even know there was a piece missing there. I finish up soldering the first side, and I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead a bit. The edges are always tough to record, so we'll go ahead and jump straight to the patina. I decided to go with a copper patina for this piece instead of leaving the soldered silver. I really felt like it helped everything pop and give the piece a nice, warmer, more finished look. After that, I applied a polish and a wax to bring out the colors to give it a nice shine. In the final shots, you can really see how well everything comes together. I still wish I could have chosen something a little better for the mountains, but overall, I really enjoyed working on this project. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch me create, and I hope to see you again soon.